Hi, this is Ben Hart from BitcoinInstitute.net. If I had to point to one property that makes Bitcoin different from all the other cryptocurrencies and assets out there, it is that Bitcoin is the only digital money network that has achieved true decentralization. But what is decentralization? And why is this important? This is a buzzword we hear a lot from other cryptocurrencies, but none of them are actually decentralized. Bitcoin is the only truly decentralized digital money. True decentralization is the true miracle of Bitcoin, and it's what makes Bitcoin unconfiscatable money. This is also a feat that cannot be replicated in my view, and I'll explain how and why as we progress through this video. We now have more than 20,000 cryptocurrencies and assets out there that have sprung up in Bitcoin's wake, that are trying to capitalize on Bitcoin's astonishing success. 90% of these crypto assets and currencies are outright scams and Ponzi schemes. There have been a few legitimate competitors, most notably I would say Litecoin and Monero. Litecoin tried to improve Bitcoin by being a faster version of Bitcoin. Monero emphasizes privacy. Litecoin still exists. It's about 1% the size of Bitcoin in terms of market cap. Monero is well under 1% of Bitcoin's market cap. I'll do a video at some point specifically on why Litecoin and Monero failed to achieve traction in the market. But I think they were the best attempts at trying to compete with Bitcoin. Okay, so then what is decentralization? And why is this important? Well, decentralized means Bitcoin is not owned or controlled by anyone or any small group. No one runs Bitcoin. There is no central administrator. Instead, Bitcoin is an open source software protocol in cyberspace that distributes a synchronized ledger of transactions about every 10 minutes to a network of more than 1 million miners and validating nodes, that is computers, spread out around the world. This process is automated. It runs like a clock. And this process cannot be stopped because the system is cryptographically protected by SHA-256 cryptography. SHA-256 was developed by the National Security Agency to protect our military's computer networks. SHA-256 is considered unbreakable code. For example, there are said to be more possibilities for private key codes than there are atoms in the known universe. But SHA-256 and blockchain technology are not what make Bitcoin unique. Cryptographically protected blockchain technology is used by banks, financial institutions, and e-commerce websites to secure their networks. What makes Bitcoin unique and one of a kind is it's the only successful truly decentralized money. Now, for most things, we don't actually want decentralization. We want centralization. Centralized networks that are controlled by someone are faster and provide a better user experience. We want to be able to call customer service if something goes wrong. We don't want a decentralized hair salon or a decentralized restaurant. However, what we do not want is centralization when it becomes tyrannical. Centralization goes wrong when the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reaches into the bank accounts of protesting Canadian truckers and grabs their money. This happened in early 2022, when thousands of Canada's truckers were protesting the COVID vaccine and other COVID mandates. So Trudeau reached into bank accounts and seized donations that were intended for the truckers. PayPal has now issued a policy as part of its new terms of service that PayPal has the right now, according to PayPal, to reach into your bank account and seize up to $2,500 as a fine if you say something on social media that wokesters at PayPal disagree with. If you use Venmo, which is owned by PayPal, or have a PayPal account, you should cancel this service immediately. Even worse are the kinds of centralization when somebody like Hitler or Stalin or Mao or Pol Pot are in charge, which is pretty much the story of most of human history. When this happens, you'll want Bitcoin. Because if the government controls your money, the government controls you. And if government can get your money, you can be pretty sure that the government is going to find a way to get it. Now, many people think there's a big difference between a government and a big corporation. Well, not really. The big multinational corporations have become arms of the government and are working as agents of the government. As Elon Musk has said, the government is just a giant corporation that happens to have a monopoly on the use of force against you. This is a big part of the problem that Bitcoin is trying to solve. The tendency of society is for government to become more and more centralized over time. The strong crush the weak. This is how empires are formed. The trend is always toward tyranny. Then the empire collapses and goes away because of corruption and decadence, as we saw with the Roman Empire, and that's the pattern of human history. America's founders tried to set up as decentralized a political system as possible. The central government was supposed to have just a few specifically defined responsibilities: provide for the national defense, law and order, and ensure the free flow of commerce among the states. 99% of the governing was supposed to be handled at the state and local level. For the most part, individuals and families were supposed to govern themselves. But this ideal became corrupted over time. Wars tend to produce more centralization, more centralized government power. So we had the Civil War, which produced a major centralization of government. Then we had World War I, followed by World War II, which produced more and more centralization, including more and more government power over the money. Money is a key lever of government power, because again, whoever controls your money controls you. What Bitcoin set out to do was separate money from state. With Bitcoin, the money is governed by math, not by people. With Bitcoin, humans have nothing to do with the issuance of the money. Money is supposed to be a unit of measurement. We don't want units of measurement to constantly change. We want money to be stable and a fixed unit of measurement, a measurement of value. The specific problem that Bitcoin set out to address was the problem of dishonest money. This was Bitcoin's very narrow purpose, because if we fix the money, we at least have a fighting chance to save freedom. If we fix the money, we solve about half of society's problems. Now let me pause here for a quick promo. If you like this video and find it useful, please hit the like, subscribe, and notifications buttons. This really helps boost the channel and this video with the algos. Also, check out my book on Bitcoin on Amazon. It's in all the formats: print, ebook, and audiobook. And be sure to subscribe to my free Bitcoin weekly report by heading over to bitcoininstitute.net. Okay, cool. Now back to your content. The reason that gold worked pretty well as the base layer for the money is the amount of gold in the world is pretty close to a fixed amount. The billionaire investor Warren Buffett says that all the gold in the world could fit into about a 67-foot cube. The supply of gold in the world has increased by about 1.5% per year through mining. So gold comes pretty close to a fixed unit of measurement. And for more on this, check out my video titled, "What is Money?" But the problem is governments do not want the money tethered to gold because this prevents the government from printing more and more money. So in January of 1934, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, signed into law the Gold Reserve Act, which changed the price of gold overnight from $20.67 per ounce to $35 per troy ounce. The effect of this was to debase the currency by 40% overnight. In other words, Roosevelt confiscated 40% of people's money overnight. And I believe this lengthened and deepened the Great Depression, by the way. And I cover this in another video. So why did FDR do this? Well, because he wanted to print up a lot of money for his New Deal programs. Gold had been about $20.67 since America's founding. The money was actually issued by private banks for much of the 19th century in America. Now, there were some problems with this, but the 19th century and early 20th centuries were an age of spectacular economic growth, which I discuss in this video here. So FDR devalued the currency by 40% in 1933. But at least gold stayed at $35 per ounce until 1971, when President Richard Nixon, with the approval of Congress, took America off the gold standard completely. At that point, the United States became a 100% fiat money printing system. Why did Nixon do this? Well, for the same reason that FDR did it. Nixon needed more money for the Vietnam War and to fund Lyndon Johnson's Great Society welfare programs. Nixon was also up for re-election in 1972. Printing up a lot of money and dumping it onto the economy creates a cocaine high for the economy. And everyone feels like they have more money in their pocket. The economy temporarily boomed, and Nixon won 49 states in the 1972 election. The problem is the economy then crashed from this cocaine high. By 1979, the annual inflation rate hit 13%. America then plunged into the deepest recession of my lifetime. I think it was worse than the 2008 financial collapse. Since America abandoned the gold standard completely in 1971, the price of 1 ounce of gold has gone from $35 per troy ounce to $1,750 per troy ounce. In other words, the dollar has lost 98% of its value since 1971. That means that the money people earned in 1971 has lost 98% of its value. 98% of that money has been stolen by the government. This means that instead of paying $40,000 for a pretty good car today, you should be paying more like $1,000 for the same car if we had remained on the gold standard. We also have run up a $32 trillion national debt, which means that every baby born today starts off life owing about $610,000 on the national debt. This is what always happens in a fiat money printing system, which is just legalized counterfeiting. It's theft. Now, whoever is in charge of issuing the money will always find a way to grab a big chunk of it. The addiction to money printing is irresistible. Imagine if you had a money printer in your basement and could print up as much as you wanted every day without legal consequence. My guess is you'd use it, as would I. Now, government officials do this in a somewhat nuanced way. They explain their money printing by using phrases like quantitative easing. It's not theft, and it's not counterfeiting, it's quantitative easing. And I go into a lot more detail about the corruption of the money in this video here and in this video here. Now, alarmingly, the US dollar is actually the best fiat currency in the world. The US dollar is the world reserve currency. The currencies of most of the developed world peg their currencies to the dollar. But most of the world has even more corrupt, more debased currencies than the United States dollar. In much of the world, we see inflation rates of 25% per year, 50%, 100%, and even 1,000% or more. In Lebanon, people have to rob banks to get their own money out of the bank.
Chaos in Lebanon. Scuffles occurring outside a bank in Beirut after a woman carrying what turned out to be a toy pistol broke in to retrieve her own trapped savings. This video surfaced on social media showing Sally Hafez standing on a desk. Witnesses say she held the gun to the bank manager's head and forced him to give her $13,000 of her own money to pay for her sister's chemo. Hafez says she meant no harm and that the toy gun belongs to her nephew. She says she visited the bank repeatedly to withdraw her money and was told she could only pull out $200 a month in Lebanese pounds. Lebanon's cash-strapped banks have imposed strict limits on withdrawals of foreign currency, tying up the savings of millions of people. More than 3/4 of the population has slipped into poverty. Hafez has been lionized across social media in Lebanon as most of its residents struggle to make ends meet.
That's what's happening in Lebanon. So as corrupt as the US dollar is, the currencies of the rest of the world are even more fraudulent. So this is the big problem that a group of brilliant computer scientists set out to address in the 1990s and early 2000s. They wanted to fix the money. And it's no accident that Bitcoin was born in the wake of the 2008 financial collapse, when these computer scientists saw that something was seriously wrong with the money and seriously corrupt about our financial system. They believed the only way to fix the money was to automate it. That is, to take humans out of the money. They wanted money to be governed by math and not by people, because people are prone to corruption and greed. If you put people in charge of issuing the money, that human will find a way to grab some of it, which is always what happens to the money throughout human history. All fiat currencies go to zero over time, usually within a half century. The US dollar has lost 98% of its value since we went off the gold standard in 1971. And the money printing will just continue to accelerate because that's the only way to pay the interest on the $32 trillion national debt, which will soon be $100 trillion. And again, this is the problem that Bitcoin set out to address, to take control of the money away from humans, and instead to put math and a robot in charge of the money. On October 28, 2008, the pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto published his landmark white paper on the Bitcoin Talk forum. There were about 700 people, mostly computer engineers, posting on the Bitcoin forum in the years leading up to this. We still don't know who Satoshi is or was. He might have been one person or a group of software engineers who had been working on the Bitcoin project for many years, actually for more than a decade. Satoshi's white paper outlined a plan for an immutable, decentralized digital money network, the key rules of which can never be changed. The most important rule being that there would be a fixed supply. There will never be more than 21 million bitcoins issued. Digital money had been created before, but they were all issued by someone, and were all under someone's control. There's really nothing special at all about digital money. Nothing special about cryptocurrency. The challenge was to create a digital money that would be unconfiscatable, because it would not be under the control of any human or small group of people. The only way to do this was to automate the governance of the money. This money had to be in the form of an uneditable ledger. With blockchain, you can add new blocks of transactions to the ledger, but the ledger history can never be changed. An updated copy of the ledger is distributed every 10 minutes simultaneously to every computer on the network. And it's completely transparent. Every transaction is auditable back to the first transaction. The identities of the transactors are hidden by code, but all transactions can be seen and observed as they occur live and in real time by everyone on the network. If any computer attempts to distribute a fraudulent ledger, it's kicked out by the system, because every computer on the network would notice a ledger that differed from everyone else's. And if you'd like to get under the hood of how Bitcoin works, just check out my video here on the mechanics of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was formally launched on January 3rd, 2009, with the mining of the first block, the Genesis block, block 0. There were actually no transactions in the first block. It was just an empty container. In fact, the first 70 or so blocks contained no transactions. The first transaction occurred on January 12, 2009, when Satoshi sent computer scientist Hal Finney 10 bitcoins that Satoshi had mined as a gift. The first use of Bitcoin to buy a commercial product occurred on May 22, 2010, when a software engineer named Laszlo Hanyecz sent out a request on the Bitcoin Talk forum saying he would happily pay 10,000 bitcoins for 2 pizzas. A 19-year-old computer engineering student named Jeremy Sturdivant answered the request. He had 2 Papa John's pizzas delivered to Hanyecz in exchange for the 10,000 bitcoins. So on that day, the price of 1 bitcoin was established by the market as worth 1/3 of 1 penny. Sturdivant quickly spent his 10,000 bitcoins. Hanyecz says he mined and spent upwards of 100,000 bitcoins in the early days of Bitcoin. So neither Hanyecz or Sturdivant got rich from Bitcoin. Both say they have no regrets. Both say they're just happy to have contributed to Bitcoin's history and progress. And that's actually true of almost all the early Bitcoiners. They mined and spent their Bitcoin. Very few of the early Bitcoiners got rich. They had no idea that 1 Bitcoin might be worth $10,000 each, or $20,000 in a few years. And the point to note here is that Bitcoin was never launched as a get-rich-quick scheme or as a venture capital project. It was much more of a kind of intellectual project, an academic project, a lab experiment to see if a truly decentralized money could be created, a money that could not be corrupted by humans. And this challenge was of great intellectual interest to about 700 computer scientists on the Bitcoin Talk forum before Satoshi launched Bitcoin. Some were interested in the political ramifications of Bitcoin. Others were more interested in the technological challenge. On January 11, 2009, Satoshi wrote this on the Bitcoin forum, announcing the first release of Bitcoin, a new electronic cash system that uses a peer-to-peer network to prevent double spending. It's completely decentralized, with no server or central authority. That was Satoshi. And Hal Finney answered this way: "Congratulations to Satoshi on this first alpha release. I'm looking forward to trying it out. Total circulation will be 21 million coins. It will be distributed to a network of nodes when they make blocks, with the amount cut in half every 4 years. Hal Finney then offered this speculation: "It's interesting that the system can be configured to only allow a certain maximum number of coins ever to be generated. I guess the idea is that the amount of work needed to generate new coins will become more difficult as time goes on. One immediate problem with any new currency is how to value it. Even ignoring the practical problem that virtually no one will accept it at first, there is still a difficulty in coming up with a reasonable argument in favor of a particular non-zero value for the coins. As an amusing thought experiment, imagine that Bitcoin is successful and becomes the dominant payment system in use throughout the world. Then the total value of the currency should be equal to the total value of all the wealth in the world. Current estimates for the total worldwide household wealth that I have found range from $100 trillion to $300 trillion. With 20 million coins, that gives each coin a value of around $10 million. So the possibility of generating coins today, with a few cents of compute time, may be quite a good bet, with a payoff of something like 100 million to 1. Even if the odds of Bitcoin succeeding to this degree are slim, are they really 100 million to 1 against? Something to think about. Hal. So Hal Finney did not actually expect Bitcoin to become the world's preferred money. But he thought there was a small chance it might. The odds are slim, but might as well get some Bitcoin just in case. Then on January 16, 2009, Satoshi provided this insight in answer to a question posted on the forum about whether Bitcoin could be said to have any real monetary value. Satoshi posited that Bitcoin already had monetary value through its proof-of-work mining mechanism, even though Bitcoin at that point had not been used commercially. Here's what Satoshi wrote. It can already be used for pay-to-send email. The send dialog is resizable, and you can enter as long of a message as you like. It's sent directly when it connects. The recipient double-clicks on the transaction to see the full message. If someone famous is getting more email than they can read, but would still like to have a way for fans to connect, they could set up Bitcoin and give out the IP address on their website. Send X Bitcoins to my priority hotline at this IP, and I'll read the message personally. Subscription sites that need some extra proof of work for their free trial, so it doesn't cannibalize subscriptions, could charge Bitcoins for the trial. It might make sense to just get some in case it catches on. If enough people think the same way, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once it gets bootstrapped, there are so many applications if you could effortlessly pay a few cents to a website as easily as dropping coins in a vending machine. Satoshi also talked about decentralization being Bitcoin's key feature. I think there was a lot more people interested in the 1990s. But after more than a decade of failed trusted third-party based systems, DigiCash, etc., they see it as a lost cause. I hope they can make the distinction that this is the first time that I know of that we're trying a non-trust-based system. Again, what makes Bitcoin very different from all or almost all other cryptocurrencies that came later is that these early cryptographers had no expectation that they would become rich from this project. They were scientists, not venture capitalists, and they were driven by their libertarian beliefs. They wanted to find a way to free the people from a corrupt money printing system that was stealing people's money every day, like termites eating your house. There were no stakeholders or shareholders in Bitcoin. No one would own or control Bitcoin. It would just exist on its own in cyberspace. While some imagine that Bitcoin might snowball on its own if adoption grew, they thought it just as likely and probably more likely that the project might not go anywhere. It might just be another failed lab experiment. Now, at first, Bitcoin, of course, was centralized. It was launched and under the control of Satoshi. Satoshi is said to have done all the coding himself. Then Bitcoin was just released into the world. But no one would control Bitcoin after its release. As more and more people downloaded the Bitcoin open source software and started mining for Bitcoin, the network became more decentralized on its own. The bigger and more decentralized the Bitcoin network becomes, the more difficult it becomes to attack and destroy, as I explain in this video here and this video here. Bitcoin certainly could have been attacked and destroyed in the early days. If so inclined, the government could have just arrested all these people and shut it down. That is, if the government had known about it. Or maybe not, since no one seems to know who Satoshi is or was. But shutting down Bitcoin becomes more and more difficult over time the larger the network grows and sprawls around the globe. The US government might be able to shut down Bitcoin mining here, but how will it shut down Bitcoin mining in Kazakhstan? How will it shut down Bitcoin mining in Mexico or in Guatemala?
Lago Bitcoin wasting to hashing. Nasty used cooking oil. Oh, how dirty is it? And this is my baby right here. Mining, and guess what? It's hashing. Kaboom!
Now, the incentive for the network to grow is the Bitcoin mining structure built into the system. The Bitcoin miners are the guardians of the network. They protect and maintain the system. They also process blocks of transactions. Every 10 minutes, there's a race among the mining computers to guess a number. The computer that guesses the number first, every 10 minutes, is rewarded with Bitcoin. Right now, the block reward for the winning miner is 6.25 Bitcoins. The winning miner also wins the right to process the transactions in the next block, and then add that block to the immutable blockchain ledger. These miners who invest a lot of money and time mining for Bitcoins are incentivized to protect the network, because by protecting the network, they are also protecting the value of their Bitcoins that they have worked so hard to earn through this mining process, called proof of work. Satoshi believed that this proof of work mining system is the only way to secure a decentralized money network. Now, in a centralized money system, such as a bank, the money is supposed to be protected by the people in charge of the money. But this hasn't worked very well, has it? Trusting humans to guard your money is really pretty absurd when you think about it. In a centralized fiat money system, whoever is in charge of issuing the money will find a way to grab some of it, and will grab more and more over time, because printing money is addictive and irresistible. This is the problem that Bitcoin was designed to solve. The problem of people who were in charge of the money just printing more and more of it whenever they please, until the money becomes worthless, like confetti, like in Venezuela, or Argentina, or Lebanon, or most of the world. So instead of humans guarding the money and issuing the money, under Satoshi's system, the integrity of the money is protected by computing power, by electric power. And as more and more miners join the network, the difficulty of this number that the mining computers must guess every 10 minutes is increased in difficulty. This is called the mining difficulty adjustment. that Satoshi built into the system. Now, with more than 1 million mining computers out there, competing for the 6.25 Bitcoin mining reward every 10 minutes, the difficulty of the number that these computers must guess is mind-bogglingly high. In the early years of Bitcoin, a standard laptop computer could be used to mine for Bitcoin. Today, specialized computers must be used for Bitcoin mining. These are called ASIC computers, ASIC, which stands for Application-Specific Integrated Circuit. These computers can only be used for Bitcoin mining. Every part of the computer is designed for this purpose. Now, the hash rate for the Bitcoin mining network is closely watched by Bitcoin miners and is a number that you can Google search and look up. The hash rate for the Bitcoin network is the number of guesses that the Bitcoin mining network is making per second to find the correct proof of work number. And as I check right now, the number of guesses the Bitcoin network is making per second is about 219 quintillion guesses per second. This is an almost unfathomable, mind-bending number per second. Now, what is a quintillion? Well, first think of 1 billion, then 1 trillion, then a quadrillion, then a quintillion. So 1 quintillion is 1 million times bigger than 1 trillion. And it's a billion times bigger than 1 billion. That's right. Then think 219 quintillion guesses per second. This requires immense brute force computing power and electricity. The purpose of this is to increase the cost for attackers to gain entrance to the network so they can attack it. It's a system designed to prevent denial of service attacks. And if you've ever heard or seen just one ASIC Bitcoin mining computer operate, it makes a lot of noise.
Here goes the Z9 Mini. And then we take a step over here. And we got our two E3 miners, and then we got an S9J and an S9.
That's how hard one ASIC mining computer is working to guess the proof of work number every 10 minutes. Now imagine more than 1 million mining computers spread out around the world doing this. This decentralized proof of mining system is the most secure method of securing a computer network that has ever been developed. Bitcoin is often criticized for using an enormous amount of electricity in this proof of work mining process. The Bitcoin mining network uses more electric power than some small countries, more than Sweden, for example. But what this mining process generates is a near impenetrable dome of electricity that helps secure the Bitcoin network, in conjunction with its decentralized structure, plus the SHA-256 cryptography and blockchain technology. And when people complain about Bitcoin's use of electricity, do these same people consider how much power we use to secure our money and property in the physical world? We spend enormous resources on the military, on police, on law enforcement, to protect our money and our property. And that's really the purpose of the military, isn't it? To protect our country, to protect our property. Bitcoin is property. Our centralized systems spend enormous amounts of electricity to secure our computer networks. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and our government have enormous data centers which consume vast amounts of electric power. People use more electricity to play video games than the Bitcoin network consumes. The Bitcoin network consumes less electricity than we use for Christmas lights. So it's really a matter of priorities. Now, Bitcoin today is about a $300 billion money network. Right now, it uses about $2 billion worth of electric power per year to secure this $300 billion network. How much would it cost to secure $300 billion worth of gold? Quite a bit more than 1% of the value of the gold, I imagine. So Bitcoin is actually a highly efficient way to store and secure wealth. And Bitcoin has never been successfully hacked. If Bitcoin could have been hacked, it certainly would have been hacked by now. And for more on this, check out my video here. This proof of work mining mechanism, developed by Hal Finney, to protect against spam and denial of service attacks is the only way to secure a truly decentralized digital money network. But it does use a lot of electric power. With centralized money and banking systems, you have to trust the people to secure your money. With Bitcoin's decentralized system, your money is secured in large part by vast expenditures of electric power. To hack Bitcoin, you first have to get through this massive dome of electric power. Then you have to hack past the SHA-256 cryptography. And remember, automated SHA-256 cryptographic code allows for more possibilities for private keys and digital signatures than there are atoms in the known universe. At least that's what those in the know say. Bitcoin is also secured by transparency. Because everyone on the network can see every transaction live and in real time as it occurs, you'd have to execute the hack in plain view of everyone on the network. This combination is what makes Bitcoin so secure. And there are additional layers of security that I cover in this video. So Bitcoin has never been successfully hacked. Yes, people have lost their Bitcoins because they weren't careful with their private keys. Anyone who gets your private key can spend your Bitcoin. And you never want to leave your Bitcoins on an exchange, like FTX. The last thing you want to do is trust the Sam Bankman frauds of the world with your money. Not your keys, not your coins is the rule. Exchanges are centralized. They're under human control. Leaving your Bitcoin on an exchange is like leaving your wallet on a park bench. Take custody of your Bitcoin. If you use an exchange to buy your Bitcoin, immediately move your Bitcoin off the exchange onto keys that you own and control. Be your own bank. That's the entire point of Bitcoin. If you are in sole custody of your Bitcoin, storing your Bitcoin on a cold storage hardware wallet, you become a sovereign free person. But if your money is in a bank, or you leave it in a human-controlled financial institution, someone can freeze your account or take your money. Then you're not a free person. You are subject to the whims of some central authority. PayPal might decide they don't like a social media post that you put up, so might dip into your bank account and take $2,500 as a fine, as punishment for your opinion, as outlined in PayPal's terms of service. Now, PayPal issued this decree, then withdrew it when there was a big public uproar, but now PayPal has reinstated this policy. We are now at a point when not just the government, but big tech companies can seize and turn off your money if you say or even think something that they don't like. Bitcoin frees you from this emerging digital prison. The fact that Bitcoin is not under human control, it's governed by math, is a big part of what makes your Bitcoin unconfiscatable money. Bitcoin removes humans from the equation. With Bitcoin, no one can block your transactions. No one can block you from receiving money. Your transactions do not go through a middleman or some intermediary. Your transactions are directly peer-to-peer. What does peer-to-peer mean? Well, it's kind of like if you want to shake hands with someone. If you want to shake hands with someone, you just walk up and shake hands. There's no middleman or intermediary shaking hands for you or stopping you from shaking hands. With Bitcoin, no one can interfere with your transactions. No one can grab your money, so long as you store your Bitcoin on your own private keys and secure your keys in a cold storage hardware wallet. I use Trezor and some other things that I talk about in other videos. This video is primarily about why decentralization is the key feature that makes Bitcoin so different from all the other cryptos. In fact, I always say that Bitcoin is not crypto. Bitcoin has nothing to do with the rest of the crypto world, 99% of which are scams and Ponzi schemes, trying to cash in on Bitcoin's stunning achievement. Bitcoin's network of more than 1 million miners and nodes spread out around the world is your guerrilla army protecting your Bitcoin. We found out in the Vietnam War how difficult it is for a conventional military to defeat a guerrilla army. The Soviet Union found this out in Afghanistan in the 1980s. You can't destroy a target that you can't find, or it's extremely difficult. China tried unsuccessfully to stamp out Bitcoin in the summer of 2021. China outlawed Bitcoin mining and transactions. At that time, about 60% of the world's Bitcoin mining was being done in China. This dropped to zero during the crackdown. The hash rate on the Bitcoin network plunged during this period, as did the Bitcoin price. And you can see this on this chart. But within a few months, the hash rate was back up to where it was, and heading up to new record highs, as China's miners moved to more hospitable countries to resume their mining. That's what happens when a guerrilla army is attacked. It moves, it disperses. But interestingly, the Bitcoin hash rate in China has come back. About 20% of the world's Bitcoin mining is back in China. So it appears that China has given up on cracking down on Bitcoin mining. It seems to have just been too difficult to do, so China's government has given up. And China's government is a totalitarian communist government. But even China's totalitarian communist government could not end Bitcoin mining in China. That's the power of decentralization. With Bitcoin, there's no headquarters to attack and bomb. There's no one to arrest. There's no building, no headquarters for the police to raid. There's no central administrator to send a court order to. Bitcoin is not hosted on a central server, such as Amazon, Google, or Microsoft's cloud services. If Bitcoin were on a centrally administered cloud service like Amazon, the government could just tell Amazon to push a button and cancel Bitcoin. That's what Amazon did to WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was hosted on Amazon. The US government contacted Amazon and got rid of WikiLeaks. Poof, WikiLeaks gone. WikiLeaks then had to find another server somewhere overseas. And of course we see what the US government is doing to Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. It's awful.
Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, is under arrest on a U.S. extradition request. We've got a brand new video showing the WikiLeaks founder. There he is right there, the guy with the white beard and the white hair, screen right, being dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy about 90 minutes ago.
Bitcoin is not hosted anywhere. And the fact that Satoshi was pseudonymous, whether he's alive or not, was truly brilliant. So the US government could not do to him what it's doing to Julian Assange. Bitcoin is a synchronized ledger distributed across more than 1 million mining computers and nodes spread out around the world who receive an updated copy of the ledger every 10 minutes. For a government to destroy Bitcoin, it would have to destroy every mining computer and every node. It would also have to destroy every offline copy of the Bitcoin ledger. So long as just one copy of the Bitcoin ledger exists somewhere, the Bitcoin network would grow back. That's the power of decentralization. Decentralization, the fact that no human controls your money, is what makes Bitcoin unconfiscatable money. Now you might think, or you might ask, why would anyone want to confiscate my money? Well, duh. People actually do think this way, though. People trust their bank, for example. They trust that their money is safe if it's in a bank. If your money is in a bank, the IRS can grab your money in a flash if it wants to. Doesn't even need a court order. If the IRS thinks you owe taxes, it will grab your money. It will then take you months, if not years, to convince the IRS you didn't owe the money. The burden is on you to prove you're innocent when it comes to the IRS. Or you might get sued over something. In a lawsuit, a judge can freeze your bank account until the lawsuit is over. Any government agency, federal, state, county, local, can come after your money if it's in a bank, and can come after your physical property at any time. If you have any significant money at all, this will happen. Lawsuits are a major industry in this country. Bitcoin is the only way to protect your money from corrupt lawyers. And now we have PayPal, which will reach into your bank and grab up to $2,500 as a fine if you say something on social media that PayPal doesn't like. That's how arrogant our big tech overlords have become. Power really does corrupt. And absolute power really does corrupt absolutely. And we'll get into the World Economic Forum at another time. That's a topic for many other videos. So Bitcoin is the only truly decentralized money network. Now other cryptocurrencies and assets claim to be decentralized, but they aren't. They're decentralized in name only. For these cryptos, decentralized is just a marketing buzz phrase they use. Has nothing to do with reality. For the rest of the crypto world, calling these assets decentralized is like calling Coca-Cola a health drink. And 99% of them are scams. And I say 99% because I have not actually looked at all 20,000 of them. So I can't say for sure that all 20,000 of them are scams, just 99%. Take the number 2 crypto asset, called Ethereum. Ethereum is about half the size of Bitcoin in terms of market cap. Ethereum is not trying to be money. Ethereum says it's trying to be a decentralized internet for decentralized applications. But it's not decentralized, and the applications on the Ethereum network do not work well at all. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. It's one of the most popular games on Ethereum, called CryptoKitties.
Now that we have Ethereum, the first thing that we're going to want to do is check out the marketplace. Oh, hey, look at this cat over here. What are those eyes? This cat's name is Cutie. I am in love with it. I love the color. I love the eyes. I love the mouth. So it's 0.002 Ethereum.
Then what you try to do is create a new cartoon cat by breeding the cats that you own. Then if you're able to sell the new cartoon cat for more than you paid for your other cartoon cats, you're a winner. And here's another one called Axie Infinity.
If you want to know how to start playing Axie Infinity, and we have to pick which Axies we are going to buy.
So these games are really way worse in quality than, say, Pokemon in the 1990s. Basically dial-up internet. So why do these games on Ethereum look so awful? Well, primarily because blockchain is slow and clunky. Blockchain is designed for security. Blockchain works well for ledgers, but it doesn't work well for complex software applications. Software applications need to be fast, need to provide a good user experience. You don't want to wait 5 minutes for your email or your Microsoft Word document to open. Blockchain is great for securing your money. It's terrible for applications. But also, Ethereum is not decentralized. It's under the total control of its creator, Vitalik Buterin. Ethereum is a dictatorship of one. Ethereum was also launched with venture capital and with an initial coin offering, or an ICO, which is like an initial public stock offering, or IPO. A small circle of founders own more than 50% of the ETH coins. ETH coins are also not money. They act more like shares in a corporation. So Ethereum is an unregistered security. The Securities and Exchange Commission should crack down on Ethereum. And in this video, Vitalik actually explains why Ethereum's founding meeting was in Switzerland.
We had been hoping to launch our pre-sale on February 1st. So this is the way to get into Ethereum financially, which would be that we would be selling Ether at a rate of 2,000 Ether for 1 Bitcoin. So we were hoping to launch the sale where you would be able to buy Ether for Bitcoin. We had to delay that for a combination of reasons, partially in order to better flesh out the business plan, partially in order to better flesh out the terms, partially for legal reasons. So from an organizational standpoint, our current situation is that we have an entity registered in Switzerland, and the reason why we're looking at Switzerland as a jurisdiction is because, first of all, Switzerland is very well known for its very friendly banking laws. It's much easier to do anything related to innovative finance in Switzerland than it is in something like the United States or even Canada.
So they headquartered Ethereum in Switzerland to avoid U.S. securities laws. They also set it up as a non-profit corporation, a non-profit foundation. But just like Ethereum is decentralized in name only, Ethereum is a non-profit in name only. Vitalik owns 290,000 ETH coins in 2 wallets that we know about. Value about $350 million at today's price. His non-profit foundation owns about 350,000 ETH coins, valued at $420 million. So yeah, this is a non-profit foundation in name only. Ethereum looks like another con job to me. I'm just wondering when Gary Gensler over at the Securities and Exchange Commission is going to get up off of his ass and look into this. Probably not soon, because Gary Gensler appears to have been pals with Sam Bankman-Fried, and Gensler appears to be protecting these crypto scam outfits. Now, to give you an idea of how decentralized Ethereum is, let's listen to what Vitalik himself has to say.
So I think I'll have to summarize that one of the ways that I think about this in a more philosophical way is like proof of work is based on the laws of physics, and so you sort of have to work with the world as it is, right? You have to work with, electricity as it is, hardware as it is, what computers are as it is. Whereas because proof of stake is virtualized in this way, it's basically letting us create a simulated universe that has its own laws of physics. And that just gives us as protocol developers a lot more freedom to optimize the system around actually having all of the different security properties that we want, right? And if we want the system to have a particular security guarantee, and then often there is a way to modify the proof of stake mechanism to also achieve it. So it's just much more flexible.
This sure doesn't sound very decentralized. Sounds like Vitalik can just change Ethereum whenever he wants to, however he wants. In fact, Vitalik has routinely threatened to vaporize people's ETH coins if they don't do what he wants them to do. In August of 2022, he changed Ethereum from a proof of work system that was kind of like Bitcoin to a proof of stake system, thus wiping out the livelihoods of Ethereum's miners. I'm sure he did not consult the miners before he did this. Now, why did he do this? Well, because Ethereum could not compete with Bitcoin as money. So he's decided to change Ethereum into something else, as yet unspecified. Or rather, he keeps changing the mission of Ethereum. Sometimes Vitalik says Ethereum's mission is to be a decentralized world computer. In recent years, he said Ethereum is building decentralized finance, or DeFi, which doesn't exist. Sam Bankman-Fried was also selling DeFi. Oh, okay. The Terra Luna scam was another so-called example of DeFi, which cost investors about $40 billion in a matter of hours in May of 2022. That was Do Kwon's scam, the young fraudster from South Korea. He's still being hunted by the South Korean authorities, and Interpol has issued an international warrant for Do Kwon's arrest. But somehow Do Kwon is still tweeting on Twitter, and he's actually launching another crypto project. So that's another example of so-called DeFi. It's DeFi. Yeah, that's the ticket. It's DeFi. We'll call it DeFi. Anyone who puts money into any of these other crypto projects really deserves what they get. Ethereum was always a venture capital project from inception, and I believe a Ponzi scheme. Not much different from Bankman-Fried or from Do Kwon. Almost $1 billion per year is lost on applications built on Ethereum. Now, in some instances, Vitalik has been able to reverse the hack and retrieve the lost coins, or replace them, which means, of course, that investors in Ethereum must trust Vitalik to safeguard their money. Vitalik has shown that he can grab people's ETH coins anytime he wants to. This also means that kidnappers or terrorists could just grab Vitalik and force him to give them all the ETH coins they want. By stark contrast, if Satoshi were to reappear on the scene, there's no way for him to grab anyone's money. No way for him to stop or reverse transactions the way Vitalik can do on Ethereum. There's no backdoor in the Bitcoin software. Bitcoin software is open source. Everyone can see exactly what's going on at all times. Bitcoin is fully transparent and is the only truly decentralized network. There are others that have tried and failed to compete with Bitcoin, try to improve on Bitcoin as decentralized money, such as Litecoin. Litecoin is still out there. It's about 1% the size of Bitcoin. But I don't think that anything will ever compete effectively with Bitcoin as decentralized money because of the unique circumstances of Bitcoin's founding. Bitcoin was not started as a venture capital project. There was no initial coin offering. Satoshi and this group of computer scientists, who had been working on this project for many years and actually more than a decade, were not motivated by profit. They were motivated primarily by their libertarian beliefs. They wanted to find a way to separate money from state. They wanted to find a way to put math in charge of the money instead of humans. And they wanted to create a system that would be impossible for humans to take over, to subvert, or corrupt. And after many years, really decades of working on this project, Satoshi then just released Bitcoin into the world. Anyone could participate in the Bitcoin system right from the beginning. There was no group of privileged insiders and investors. All you had to do is download the Bitcoin software, and anyone could start mining for Bitcoin, or become a validating node. There was no CEO, no board of directors, no governing hierarchy, no privileged group of oligarchs who own more than half the money, as there is with Ethereum. I call Bitcoin the Immaculate Inception, not the Immaculate Conception, which would be blasphemous. So I call Bitcoin the Immaculate Inception. It would be impossible, in my view, to recreate the unique and special circumstances under which Bitcoin was born. There have been more than 20,000 crypto projects that have come in the wake of Bitcoin's stunning success. All have failed. Because Bitcoin's software is open source, anyone can just copy and paste Bitcoin's code, make a few tweaks, and try to launch an improved version of Bitcoin, maybe a faster version. And that's what many of these efforts have attempted, tried to create faster versions of Bitcoin. But what the market told us is that people like the original version of Bitcoin, exactly the way it is. No changes needed. What I would say is very difficult and probably impossible to replicate is Bitcoin's network of approximately 180 million users, growing every week and every month, plus Bitcoin's network of more than 1 million miners and validating nodes. Bitcoin is being adopted by the world about twice as fast as the rate of adoption for the internet in the 1990s and early 2000s. And here's a chart comparing the rate of adoption. The internet's rate of adoption here, and Bitcoin's rate of adoption here. And I'll correct myself a little bit. There have been a few honest attempts to create better versions of Bitcoin, Litecoin being one, Monero being another. But their networks are tiny. Bitcoin also has a strong brand in people's minds. If you ask people on the street randomly, very few people would even be able to name another cryptocurrency or another crypto asset other than Bitcoin. Or they might just say generally crypto. But very few would even know what Ethereum is. So Bitcoin's strong brand and its enormous network of users, and the fact that it is what it says it is, truly decentralized, will make it very difficult to replicate or replace Bitcoin. I believe impossible, in large part because the circumstances under which Bitcoin was launched cannot be recreated. Now, Bitcoin is often criticized as too difficult to change. But of course, that's the entire point of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is supposed to be very difficult to change. Its mission is to be honest money. It's supposed to be a unit of measurement. When you work hard all day making a living, when you provide a service or produce a product, you get paid money in exchange for your work. You get paid value in exchange for value. Money is supposed to be a way for you to store this value for later use. But if the government is able to just steal some of your money all day, every day with its money printing press, with its counterfeiting operation, then money no longer functions as a unit of measurement. It's no longer a way to store value. It's more like a leaky boat. You don't want to be in a leaky boat if you're trying to cross the ocean. You want a boat that's going to get you across the ocean. We don't want a leaky money either. We want a money that will store value accurately so that we can carry this value into the future. We don't want a leaky money. We want a money that will take us to tomorrow. We don't want our money to leak value over time. We don't want inches, centimeters, ounces, and other units of measurement to change either. If we did not have an accurate way to measure things, we could not have engineering. We could not have a modern civilization. We would all be living in mud huts or teepees. So Bitcoin is designed to be very difficult to change. We don't want money ledgers that are easy to change. That would be bad. Bitcoin is like the sun. We know exactly what time the sun will rise and set on this day 1 year from now, or 1,000 years from now. That's Bitcoin, immutable, like the sun. It's a fixed unit of measurement, the basic rules of which will never change. Now, it is possible to make some changes in Bitcoin, to upgrade the software and things like that. Any upgrades or changes to the software have to be approved by 95% of the Bitcoin miners and nodes. And upgrades have been approved, but it takes years to get an upgrade or change approved. For example, the maximum block size for a 10-minute Bitcoin block of transactions was increased from a maximum of 1 megabyte to 4 megabytes, so it would allow for more transactions per block. The purpose of this was to address some of Bitcoin's scalability issues while protecting Bitcoin's decentralized structure. If the blocks are too big, it will be too costly for the average person to operate as a full validating node. They'll need more expensive computers, and so this would tend to produce more centralization in the network. So that's why we want small blocks of transactions, not large blocks of transactions, so the average person can be a validating node on the network with a standard laptop computer. Because Satoshi wanted as many people as possible to be on the network, watching it, using it, participating in verifying transactions, and so forth. Bitcoin also approved upgrades that allowed for applications to be built on top of the Bitcoin base layer. An example being the Lightning Network, that enables super cheap, almost free instant transactions. Use Lightning to buy your cups of coffee at 7-Eleven. So Bitcoin acts like gold as the base layer. Gold is not convenient to use as a daily currency either. So paper money was created to make daily transactions more convenient. Until 1933, U.S. paper money were actual gold certificates that anyone could exchange at a bank for actual gold. That ended in 1933. The problem with paper, of course, is that it can be counterfeited, or the government can just forget the gold standard and print more of it. So Lightning is analogous to paper money in the physical world. You load a small amount of Bitcoin into Lightning, and you use Lightning for daily transactions, to buy your cups of coffee, groceries, and whatnot. Bitcoin's primary purpose is a way to store your wealth. Bitcoin is also a bearer asset, which means that you can carry it with you. You can't carry your house with you, and it's difficult to transport gold bars. Bitcoin is easy to transport. You can carry it on your phone. You can write your code on a piece of paper, or you can carry your Bitcoin in your head if you can remember a 12-word phrase. If all hell breaks loose here or wherever you live, Bitcoin enables you to carry your wealth with you, out of view of possible thieves, the Gestapo, or other human hazards. Bitcoin is not really for buying your cups of coffee at Starbucks. Bitcoin is the base layer. Bitcoin was engineered for security. Bitcoin is your vault, designed to secure your wealth. The reason you want maximum decentralization is for maximum security. If you like this video and find it useful, please hit the like, subscribe, and notifications buttons. This really helps the video and this channel. Helps get this information out to more people who need it, who need to join this effort to save our freedom. And check out my other Bitcoin videos. And then head on over to Amazon and take a look at my book on Bitcoin. It's in all the formats, print, ebook, and audiobook. Some people like both the print and audio versions of the book, so they can listen and read along at the same time. And subscribe to my free Bitcoin Weekly Report at bitcoininstitute.net. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for listening. Hope to see you back here for the next video.